everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the Imagine 2022 session entitled What Employers Really Want with our very own alumni, Justin Sheffer, Magic Washington, and Marisa Farmer. My name is Christine Barkley, and I'm a career coach for career services, assisting students and alumni interested in joining the STEM and healthcare industries. This afternoon's Imagine 2022 session is the first of week 2 and is sponsored by the President's Office, Career Services, and the Oswego Alumni Association. Today, I'll be acting as the Zoom host, and I'll be taking care of logistics on the back end with the chat function and polls if we decide to use them. So you probably won't be seeing me all that much, but that gives Elise, our beautiful student host, an opportunity to host our session today and all of our amazing panelists. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Elise.
Hello, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us this evening. My name is Elise Ellington, and I'm a senior studying human resource management and psychology. Currently on campus, I'm involved with career services where I work as a peer navigator, and I'm also a teaching assistant for the School of Business. My personal career interests include working in recruiting, where I get to be an active part of the hiring process, and I get to be interacting with people every single day. And personal interests include being outside, especially at the lake, walking my dog, and hanging out with my sorority sisters. And so before we get started with the panel, I'd like to just address a few housekeeping items. So tonight's event will be recorded and is being posted on the Imagine 2022 website. So you guys can dive back in and rewatch or share with some friends who weren't able to attend tonight. You guys are also welcome to use the chat throughout the session to engage with the panelists as well as ask any questions you may have. We'll save a few minutes at the end also in case you have questions for the panelists. And lastly, if you haven't already, please check out the events on the Imagine 2022 website so you don't miss out on any of the amazing sessions we have this month. And that link will be shared in the chat right now. And now I'm so excited to introduce you guys to our panelists, Marisa, Justin, and Magic. Starting with Marisa, would you each mind taking a moment to introduce yourselves by restating your name, your current position, and a bit about the company you work for?
Yes, thank you, Elise, and thanks, Christine. And hi, everyone. So my name is Marisa, and I am a senior recruiter with the Planet Group. And the Planet Group is actually a national staffing agency. So my team works with companies in the Boston and greater Boston area on any HR or talent acquisition openings within their companies. And then from there, it's my job to partner with local HR and TA professionals who are looking for work and connect them with those job openings.
I guess I'll go next. My name is Magic Washington. I'm a recruiter at Northwestern Mutual. We're a full service financial planning company, and essentially we help our clients achieve their financial goals. So we focus on risk management and wealth management. So on the risk management side, you have your life insurance, disability insurance, long-term care. Then on the wealth management side, you have your stocks, your bonds, mutual funds, college planning, retirement planning, so on and so forth.
Hey everybody, pleasure to be here and honor to speak as well. My name is Justin. I am a technical recruiter with TEKsystems. TEKsystems is a full stack IT services and staffing firm. So a little bit similar to Marisa, just in a different industry. So we connect and work with customers of ours who need either short-term, long-term, or permanent IT resources, expanding from entry-level PC technicians all the way up to senior software developers, either Java, .NET, any of those core application space. So we focus mainly core applications, telecommunications, dynamic workplace services, and infrastructure optimization as well. So really happy to be here, and thanks again.
All right, awesome, guys. Thank you so much. And just jumping right into the questions. So what types of positions do you hire for and across what industries?
So I focus specifically on filling HR and talent acquisition roles or recruiter roles. So I do partner with other recruiters, which is fun. And we really work across all industries and from entry level up to director, vice president level. So we work with biotech companies, healthcare, retail, tech, manufacturing, finance, really all across the board. As long as it's an HR opening, we will work with a company to help them fill that.
I specifically focus in the finance space, and I specifically recruit for financial representatives for Northwestern Mutual.
Yeah, and then with TEKsystems, very similar to Marisa, again, we're both staffing firms, so we work with customers specifically. And I'm on the IT side. Anything related to IT, whether it's entry level, Java development, again, all the way up to senior programmers. We're everything full circle IT. And we also partner with the companies that we partner with are mostly Fortune 500 companies. So just to name a few, Amazon, Walt Disney, Sony, PlayStation, Blizzard. I mean, there's just to name a few opportunities there, all within IT.
Okay, awesome. And so going off of that, looking at the 8 NACE career competencies, which will be up on the screen, what would you say the 2 to 3 competencies that your organization prioritizes the most when you're hiring new employees?
Yes. So I did look at these before because I hadn't heard of these, but really insightful. So the first that stood out to me was professionalism. And I think it stood out to me just because of the climate we're in right now. I think with the way COVID has impacted the office, work from home situation, professionalism is so important. And so some of the things that I was reading in the research that stood out to me was, being dependable, meeting, exceeding goals, showing dedication, really representing yourself in a way that you're proud of and that would make your company proud as well. So I think, again, all of these are so important in general, but especially building that as you, enter the workforce and potentially find yourself in a work from home situation or a hybrid situation. And then second for me that stood out was communication. And this was a big one for me when I entered the workforce, is just really realizing that each of your colleagues will have different communication styles, and that can be frustrating if you don't find a way to embrace it. So just really understanding how you communicate well, voicing that to your colleagues, and then also understanding their preferred communication as well. Kind of just avoids frustration in the workplace and any miscommunication that might happen. And then lastly for me was teamwork, which is similar to kind of communication. It all ties in, but really building trust with team members, being accountable for yourself and your own production, and really being someone who can collaborate and be leaned on and trusted with your colleagues.
I will follow up with that. And similar to Marisa, I actually had never heard of these 8 competencies, so I took some time to look them up as well. And just like her, one of the ones that stuck out to me was definitely professionalism and work ethic. So they work in staffing and I work in-house. So those are kind of like the 2 different avenues that you can go within recruiting. So I recruit specifically for financial representatives or financial advisors. The term is interchangeable. And it's not your typical 9 to 5 career. A career as a financial advisor with Northwestern Mutual is very entrepreneurial. And anyone that is an entrepreneur knows that there's nothing easy about being an entrepreneur. So when you're thinking about professionalism and work ethic, you can pretty much teach someone the values of a company. You can kind of teach them the day-to-day, but you can't really teach somebody, how to hustle and how to want to work hard and how to want to be successful. And that's where that work ethic comes in. So that's definitely something that I'm looking for when I'm speaking with candidates. And then oral communication, just because a big bulk of your day-to-day as a financial representative is client-facing. So, you're meeting with clients, you're figuring out what their financial needs and what their financial goals are. You're building plans, making recommendations on products and services that Northwestern Mutual has to offer. So it's very important, at least for me, that you know how to communicate, especially orally, because you will be speaking with clients day in and day out.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off of that, and it's behold to me, I mean, technology is not one of the core competencies I'm going to choose, even though we are primarily a technology staffing firm. People have the technology. And kind of going back to what Marisa said, communication is just an absolutely huge aspect of any professional role, whether it's recruiting or another HR function, or even in sales or any other business role. Communication is absolutely huge. And that's what they're going to be looking for right out of the gate, entry level, both written and verbal communication. Being able to market yourself and be really comfortable with who you are and what you want out of a career is super, super important. And I also look for that for the people that I hire on my payroll as consultants with TEKsystems. Is yes, you may have the technology, great. You may have the ability to work on this certain implementation project, fantastic. But how are you going to be able to communicate that with stakeholders and C-level executives like CEOs, CFOs, COOs, right? You have to have that proactive communication. So that's number one. And number two, teamwork. Collaboration is one of the most important things. Again, that's transferable across any professional career endeavor. It's the ability to work well with other people. So if there's any seniors in this chat right now who are participating and just viewing, take the step up when you are doing a work or a group work project, right? Take the step, take the initiative. It'll really be a driving factor for you to build upon your teamwork skills. And I talk to people that are close to retirement and they don't have the teamwork skills that are necessary for certain roles. So it's really important to get on that as early as you can and always be proactive and take initiative. And
that cut out a little bit for me. But that brings up a question that I personally have is, you all said something along the lines of professionalism. What's an experience that someone can have on their resume that shows you professionalism besides how they're acting when you meet them?
That's a really good.
Out?
No.
Okay.
I heard that. That's just a tough question to answer.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting because I think it can be hard to kind of express those soft skills on a resume, but I think using words that show your teamwork, or one thing that I've been noticing recently on resumes is, candidates noting if they've worked from home, because that would kind of show that you are, hold yourself accountable if you did that successfully. It's a very new thing for the workforce, but I think we have a certain amount of those hard skills, and I'm sure, Justin, it's so huge in your job with the tech skills, but then, balancing those on your resume with those soft skills and maybe showcasing an example of a team project and that you took the lead on maybe, or things like that. It is tough on a resume to have those things come across, but that kind of comes front of mind for me.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with Marisa. I think it's hard to kind of read professionalism on a resume. I think for me, what I would mostly be looking at is just some type of, success within your career or within a company. So have you been promoted, throughout your time being there? How long have you been there? Are you in the same role but at different companies? I think that's what I would kind of look for if I'm thinking of professionalism on a piece of paper. But all in all, ultimately, the best way to kind of tell is to, sit in the interview and have that one-on-one conversation.
Yes, and just to kind of play off of Magic again, I mean, especially for the audience here, right? Just having a good understanding of getting that first entry-level job or breaking through the door of the HR process. I mean, we are the people that you need to break through. And, Marisa can agree, Magic can agree. So honestly, when it comes down to yourself, being comfortable with who you are and knowing that you have what it takes to get through the door, it's going to be half the battle when you're in the recruitment process, right? For example, I recently just hired a guy internally with TEKsystems. We had two final candidates. The first candidate, was very good technically. They had the skill set, they had everything, but they didn't have the confidence and the coercion to really get after this project. The second candidate had lacked a little bit of the same technologies that the first candidate did, but he came in there and blew us out of the water. Seriously. I mean, it's all about how you interview. It's not necessarily exactly about what's on your resume, but just be comfortable with who you are and know what you want, and you'll be able to, crush through the door. And I'm sure these guys can agree.
Okay, great. Thank you. So besides the 8 NACE career competencies, what are other skills and abilities that you guys look for your organization?
I would say for us internally, looking for someone who's and I think this can be for many industries too and companies that you might go into, but someone who's very agile, can communicate effectively. It seems like we've all been reiterating that point, so that's definitely important. Someone who can, switch priorities and tasks, and someone who really has that team mentality. And then just kind of a side note too, I would always recommend, and this kind of goes back to your question too, Elise, any job description that you're reading or interested in applying to, I would really read bullet for bullet what they're looking for and pull out those soft skills that they mention in the job description and be able to draw on experiences that kind of reflect that skill set during the application process. So that's just a little side tip that could be helpful. But yeah, I would say those outside of those competencies, those kind of come front of mind for me.
In terms of skills, because a career as a financial representative is not your typical 9 to 5, we even have career changers that transition into this kind of role. So one of our advisors here, he went to school for software engineering. One of our other representatives, she was a caseworker. Another person was actually a teacher. So, I don't really necessarily believe in linear career trajectories. That's kind of something that I've always been big on. Because even for me, I'm into recruiting, started my background. I got my degree in Oswego in marketing, then I went into sales, and now I'm in recruiting. So I'm more so kind of look for characteristics. So I want to know, like, are you entrepreneurial? Like I mentioned, a role as a financial advisor, you are directly impacting people's lives and helping change their life. So, do you have a passion for helping other people? Are you hardworking? Are you forward thinking? Are you a self-starter? Those are kind of the things that I'm looking for when I'm, looking for a candidate.
Yeah, I think that's great, Magic. The fact that you put in characteristics there is something that we absolutely look for as well. But from a strict technology side, right? So TEKsystems hires, IT services and professionals within IT. So just to kind of play into some specific hard skills here, if you're into, gaming, troubleshooting, if you have great PC hands-on knowledge, we want to have a conversation with you, right? Because we have multiple opportunities nationwide with large customers, right? To name a few, University of Vermont, that's fairly local here, Albany Medical Center as well. Just in my local market of the Albany, New York area, they're always looking for PC technicians to come in. So if you have a general interest in information technology and you know your way around a computer, not only just using PowerPoint, all the Microsoft documents, but if you know how to program and troubleshoot and dial in and help from a help desk perspective, it's definitely something to stay in tune with. So if you're on the IT side of things, just my best piece of advice for you is get exposed to as many technologies as you can. And the more technologies we see, the easier it's going to be able for us to help you find a role. And just to name a few, I'm sure you guys are familiar, C++, Python are huge ones to come out of school with. A little bit of JavaScript, Java programming, even some C# as well, just to name a few that'll make you really competitive coming out of school, entry level, that is.
Okay, great. That's great advice. So I'm going into my next question. Justin, you kind of touched on this a little bit already, but given two candidates with the same qualifications, what helps set applicants apart with the format and the content of their documents, and how do you guys make the final decision?
Yeah, this is a really great question. So I would say, for me, it's how the candidate treats the application and interview process. So I would say, just be very thoughtful throughout the interview process. If someone is, really engaged throughout, sending a follow-up email, asking really thoughtful questions throughout the interview, really digging into the opportunity, sending thank you notes after that are individual and kind of reference maybe what the interviewer talked about, that goes so far versus a candidate who maybe has the best resume in the world, but didn't really act so engaged throughout the interview process, because ultimately you want someone working at your company who's really excited and has shown that throughout the interview process. So for me, it's those small steps throughout the interview process that would set a candidate apart.
And I completely agree. For me, I speak to so many people on a day-to-day basis. It's very hard for me to remember everyone, but I always remember the people that reached out to me and followed back up with me and sent me an email. Because surprisingly, I feel like you're kind of taught that in college, but not everybody does it. I can count on probably 2 hands how many emails I've gotten back, like thank you emails, across all the hundreds of interviews I've done, so far since I've been with Northwestern. So definitely that, and back to Marisa's point, just how they treat the interview process. So our selection process is 3 steps, and there is a homework assignment included within that process. So I'm really looking to see, do you have questions, or are you kind of just yesing me, right? Because you have a lot of candidates that you speak to them and they just say, yeah, yeah. Do you have any questions? No, you did a really good job explaining everything. So you don't have any concerns or any questions about anything I just mentioned. So that's kind of usually like a red flag. Maybe you're not that interested. You're just applying everywhere, just kind of interviewing the interview. So I definitely agree with Marisa.
Yeah, no, those are, I mean, both very good inputs there. But I will start by saying this. If I have a candidate who's applied to one of my job postings for a customer, let's just use Sony PlayStation for an example. I am much more likely to reach out to the candidate who sends an immediate follow-up email after their application, introducing themselves and explaining to me what their skill set is, than somebody who were to just hit the apply button. That proactiveness in your job search, and I know Christine and Elise can hammer this home because I myself was a peer navigator and worked for career services as an undergrad. That follow-up and that proactive communication shows me quite a few things. It shows me that, number one, you're incredibly interested in the role. Number two, you're on the job market looking for a role. And number three, you want this position more than anybody else. So my best piece of advice for students in the seat that you're in right now, applying to jobs all over the place, as soon as you press submit on that application, you find out who works there, right? A hiring manager. Okay, let me shoot them a quick thank you note. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for allowing me to apply. I'm really interested in this role and here's why. That is the ability to market yourself. And I know that Marisa and Magic will agree with me on this. Follow-up is one of the most important things in the job application process. It is, because it shows that you're actively interested, you're heartfelt, and you're putting yourself out there. And that is more likely going to lead you to the position than any other candidate who doesn't do any of those steps. So I would just say to you guys, be proactive as you can, because it certainly gets my attention, even though it may be annoying for me at times because I get 100 emails a day on average. But I will more likely follow up with you if you reach out to me right after your job application, period.
And just to kind of like piggyback off of what Justin said, I think you really made an important key point in terms of like LinkedIn. Like we're in a job market right now where we've never seen this before. The market is hot. Companies are hiring left and right. People are leaving their jobs left and right. It's very competitive right now. So you really want to make sure that you're standing out. And never be scared to, kind of double up and send more than one message. Because I think Marisa and Justin can agree, as recruiters, especially on LinkedIn, we're getting messages left and right. And I'm human, I do overlook messages sometimes, but if you are reaching back out, there's no way I can kind of, miss that.
That's really great advice. And it's like all the little things matter. And it's so great to hear from you guys, like recruiters, because I know personally, I on LinkedIn get a little bit nervous, like, oh, maybe I seem like I'm being pushy, but just to hear it straight from you guys is great. And Magic, you kind of went into this a little bit, but so what are some interview red flags for you guys? I know you talked about not answering any or not asking any questions.
Do you want me to go back into that one, or are we gonna go the same order?
Oh yeah, just if there are any more interview red flags or any red flags along the whole hiring process.
Oh yes, for sure. And I see Justin start laughing because I think that we kind of all have horror stories, and it's so funny. I was just reaching out to my team earlier today, and I was saying I'm gonna start an anonymous page about recruiter horror stories because people surprise you. I can definitely tell you that. Just to give you a little sidebar, today I had an interview, supposed to have an interview. Candidate joins my Zoom, then he leaves the Zoom. I call him, text him, no answer. So I'm just like, what kind of happened there? But in terms of like red flags, because everything is virtual right now, I'm not doing any in-person interviews. I think that when I get on the Zoom and if you're kind of like slouching around, or I can tell that you're like texting and not really making eye contact, that's kind of a red flag for me. My favorite ones when I go, what do you know about the company? Then I hear like a hold on, I see you like reading off the screen, off of like our about page or like your notes. So I'm like, okay, you didn't do your research. Or my favorite, when I ask you, what do you know? Oh, I don't really know anything. I was hoping that you could tell me. These are all red flags.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. Not doing research on the company is a huge one because it's so easy for us to find so many, articles on the company, go on their LinkedIn page, see what's going on with them in the news. It just feels like a no-brainer. And I know we're cracking up because it really isn't. And sometimes you really have to prepare candidates on that. If they're going to be speaking with a hiring manager, or someone high up in the company, making sure they're doing that, because you would think it's obvious, but it's not. So that's huge.
First of all, Elise, love this question. I mean, I'm serious. I seriously started cracking up when you asked, just because I could go. I spent a whole day talking about the experiences, but I'd say the first thing is, don't read off your resume. If you can't be audible ready to talk about your previous experiences, it's a no-go. So if that's your plan of attack, I'd suggest going back to the drawing board and start something different. Second thing is, know what you're talking about before going into it, right? I've seen candidates try and jump around the question and talk about all these technologies that they're interested in, or at least have utilized in certain projects before. And I know that that's, certainly not the case all of the time. So just be prepared. I really like what you said, Marisa, about doing your research beforehand. I think Magic, you alluded to it as well. Being as prepared as possible is the most important thing you can do for an interview. And you have access to all this information, right? You know the company, you can go on their website, you can find out who works there, you can see who's going to be interviewing you, you can learn about their background on LinkedIn. I mean, this gives you so much collateral to do, very, very well for yourself. So just be prepared. And then the other thing too is show up, be presentable, sit up straight in your chair, make direct eye contact, and you tell this company that you're very interested in, that I'm here for a reason and I'm here to produce and work really hard. And you show all of that just by using physical expressions, right? Be excited, get into it, right? I mean, this is an opportunity for you to have a career somewhere. I mean, just be energetic about that. And, that's one thing that I certainly value and look for. And it's a big red flag to me if somebody shows up, in like a half button down shirt, a pair of jeans, they don't want it. They're not dressing to impress. And, it's one of those things where you have to do that, right? You have to show up, you have to be presentable, you have to be audible ready. So just keep that stuff in mind, guys. Seriously, it's super, super important. And these are skills that don't have to be, taught. These are skills that anybody can go out and do. Like when you see those LinkedIn posts about like 5 skills you can't teach, those are true. That's not, BS. Those are very truthful things that people share on LinkedIn. So pay attention to that as well, is what I would say.
I would also just add too that it's okay to go into interviews nervous and go through an interview process, an application process nervous. That would never, ever be a red flag, because I know you think you have to present the best version of yourself, and maybe you think that is reading from your resume or having all these notes on the company. But when I was applying after college, I kept telling myself, this isn't the SAT. They're not going to ask me any questions about myself that I don't know. So just keep that in mind. And being nervous in an interview is never a red flag for anyone. And it's definitely so common, obviously, as you're coming out of college.
And just to piggyback off of that, I think at the end of the day, it's always important to understand that we are human too. We're recruiters, but we are human, so I think a lot of recruiters have a certain level of empathy as well. So, just kind of keep that in mind.
Those are all really great points. And so as far as preparation goes, besides researching the company and not reading off your resume, I know we say in career services to practice speaking out loud and not just have the ideas in your head. What are some other ways that people could prepare for interviews that you would notice that would help them stand out?
I was waiting to see who would hit unmute first. I would say that's such a huge tip. I mean, to be honest, even prepping for this, I was, going through some of the questions out loud. I think that's so huge. It just builds your confidence. But yeah, no, I would just say, again, don't feel like you have to jot everything down. Know what's on your resume, feel comfortable about it. You don't have to know everything about the company, just know enough about what interests you. And if you have to ask questions, you can't know everything. So, I would almost say don't over prepare in that way. Don't go in with a notebook full of notes and questions and points on the company and whatnot. At the same time, I actually do recommend writing down questions. I'm going to take that back because it's so easy to forget when you're in the interview. It's so easy to forget what you might have wanted to ask. So I would actually recommend writing down questions that you'd want to ask them. But other than that, I think for me, just don't psych yourself out. Just know you're going in there and you're going to speak to your experience and you know it better than anyone else.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. Just in terms of preparing, what I would notice, I think the bottom line is just knowing at least, about the company and just why you're interested in it, right? Don't get in here and kind of tell me that you're having a hard time finding a role, so you took one finance accounting course when you were in 10th grade and you kind of liked it, so you just wanted to try this out. Like, because these are explanations that I seriously get on like a day-to-day basis, and it's crazy to me. You know, I think do the research and kind of have, you know, well thought out reason as to why you see yourself, you know, being a financial advisor or being a financial representative, and why you want to work in this industry. And then, like Marisa mentioned, just taking the time to write questions down, because it, like she said, it's very easy to forget your questions. I have such a short attention span, and I forget what I was thinking 2 seconds ago. So imagine, you know, me, someone that's kind of seasoned, imagine someone that is just interviewing, you know, you want to make sure that you write down your questions.
I completely agree with you, Magic. In response to the short-term memory part, I totally get that. Completely resonates. So, you know, for all of you out there who also experience that, you're not alone. Another thing too, and this is, you know, just more of a well-rounded answer on my end, is when you're interviewing, right, you're going to have multiple opportunities in the mix. You're going to be able to interview in multiple spots. So one general piece of advice that I would give is don't be too hard on yourself when you get a rejection letter, or, you know, don't go into, you know, applying to a job being like, oh, I'm not even going to get this job. If you tell that to yourself, you're right, you won't. So just have some confidence and some resiliency in this process. It doesn't happen in a snap of a finger. Sometimes it does if you're really lucky. But at least for me, I mean, I went through trial and error. Even after I graduated, it took me quite a few years to really land on something that I enjoyed. So, you know, just be easy on yourself. Like, if you know you did everything to prepare for that interview and you still didn't get it, it's probably not about you. It's probably about what the company is looking for. And I know that Marisa and Magic can agree with that. I mean, I've had some great consultants interview, and, you know, I've really wanted to bring them on, but the team doesn't necessarily agree. So, you know, just take that in and take it as a grain of salt, and don't let it deter you from continuing to push for what you want, because the right opportunity is out there and you will find it.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Thank you. And so going back into the little things that help people stand out. So for the thank you notes, do you prefer to receive the thank yous via email or like old school written mail? And what can people include in their thank you note to make them stand out?
I would say email these days, just to ensure it gets to the interviewer quickly. And things that they could include to stand out. So again, like if you're interviewing with a panel at a company and then you send the same exact thank you note to every single person, that kind of loses meaning. So if you say I interviewed with Justin first and he brought up a really great point about this new technology that's really interesting, like I would make sure to reference that as a point that I found intriguing in our interview. And then if Magic brought up another point that I found interesting in my note to her, I'd want to reference that. I would never want a thank you note to be, you know, a full essay, but just a quick, hey, thank you for your time. I really enjoy getting to learn more about the company. Thought it was really cool that you've been involved in XYZ project. Please let me know if there's any follow-up questions, you know, best Marisa. That feels like an ideal thank you note. A little bit of personalization, but not going overboard and making it too long. Still concise.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely concise and to the point, and referencing something that we spoke about, because it just shows that you were listening and that you were paying attention. And definitely don't ever send anything via mail. We're saving trees, you know, reducing paper. So everything email.
I love that, Magic and Marisa. And I would agree with both of them on that point. I mean, if you want to make sure it gets to the recruiter, you got to send an email. I mean, old school is awesome. I'm definitely an advocate for that. I mean, there's nothing better than, you know, getting a handwritten thank you note, but there's no promises on if it'll be delivered. So email is definitely the way to go, especially nowadays. I mean, you guys have access to it. Everybody does. And then just to kind of follow up on Marisa and Magic again, anything that you guys had talked about, whether it was a personal anecdote or, you know, a conversation topic, right? For example, if you're a sports fan and you and the hiring manager have the same sports team, like throw in something there, like, hey, let's hope the Giants do well this year. You know, fingers crossed for the Giants. And just make yourself, again, going back to a point I made earlier, make yourself stand out, right? Like when the decision comes, when the team gets together to make a decision, they want to talk, well, oh, Justin, you know, he was really well, you know, sounded, he spoke to the position, he knows about the company, and, you know, we connected on a personal note too. So they're going to keep all of that in mind. I know that for a fact because we do that internally at TEKsystems. When we hire for other technical recruiters, not necessarily IT consultants for our customers. But when we hire other technical recruiters, we're looking for that personability aspect and for somebody to be, memorable, if you will. So again, don't put too much pressure on yourself. But if you even you notice like a little thing, like maybe even a compliment, like, hey, love the tie you're wearing today, something like that, you can throw it in the thank you note, and it goes a severely long way. So keep that in mind too.
Okay, thank you. And so Marisa, you mentioned that if you were doing an interview with a panel, to send a different thank you note to each of them. And that's something I'd never thought about, to send multiple thank you notes. So I just wanted to reiterate that you think definitely to send multiple notes, or to send them to kind of just the one point person.
Yeah, and I think it honestly is case by case, because sometimes you might not have everyone's email address too. So if you are in touch with the recruiter at the company, but you interviewed with 3 other people outside of the recruiter, I think it's totally fine. You could send all 3 notes to that recruiter. You could send, I don't think it's bad to send one generic note to everybody. I just wouldn't want like the same exact note going to all 3 people, if that makes sense. Also, something to think about too, like, going back to my point of view, if you don't have the email address, LinkedIn is a great resource too, because a lot of if a hiring manager is not on LinkedIn, that would be kind of crazy. So most hiring managers are on LinkedIn. Any recruiter, HR person's on there too.
Okay, great. So I want to open it up to the participants now. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And I'll wait for those to come in. But my personal questions that I have for you guys is, what different types of activities were you involved in during your time here at Oswego, and how did they help you become career ready and gain the skills that you had when you were beginning your job search?
I can start. So when I was in Oswego, I graduated 2018. I was part of the African Student Organization. So my sophomore year, I was Director of Public Relations. Then I was Vice President. I was also on the dance team. I was also part of NABA, and I was also on the STEP team. So then I hosted like a lot of fashion shows, a lot of dinners. I did a bunch of stuff when I was up there in Oswego. And I just think that, especially being a student leader, working with the cultural organizations, definitely taught me how to work with different personalities and be a team player. Because I already was getting that from your team projects, from my classes, but these are only people that you kind of see them for a few times throughout the day. But working with the African Student Organization and just like everybody else, these are people that you're kind of seeing every day. You're collaborating with them on events, you're planning things, you guys are getting into heated arguments, there's miscommunication. And I think that ultimately that is one of the best things that kind of set me up to be career ready, because I realized from a young, early age, kind of different personalities, and noticing, when to kind of react and when to kind of just be like, all right, I'm just gonna let it go. This is not that serious. Everything doesn't need a response.
I think that's so accurate, Magic. It's so funny. And I will give myself this because I graduated before you guys, but when Christine sent that form to kind of like reflect on what we did at Oswego, I was like really racking my brain. I was like, oh my gosh, that feels forever ago. But I think for me, like, college was, you have the coursework and that is what it is. But I think those extracurriculars that you get involved with, like, I joined Delsart Dance and I had never danced one day in my life. And that was just something different that my friend and I tried. And just like taking those opportunities to step out of your comfort zone. I was a board member on Lambda Pi Eta as well. And I did intern with Career Services as well as a compass navigator. Are they called peer navigators now? But yeah, dating myself. But either way, that gave me a lot of exposure to just like resume work, careers, like what does that look like? So I think whether it's related to coursework or not, any way to step out of your comfort zone will just give you confidence in yourself, and confidence goes so far in the workforce. And to Justin's point earlier, that's what made that one person get the job over another person. So just having that and showing yourself that you can do things that you didn't think you could do goes a long way. And there's really no opportunity like doing it in college too, because there's really not, you don't realize it until you're out of it, but there's so many opportunities to get involved and just have fun with different things and try things out before you leave and enter the workforce.
I'll tell you what, it's been tough to go last because you guys are just absolutely crushing it so far. Again, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but it truly does give you confidence, right? I didn't start, and it's never too late either. I didn't start getting involved on campus until the end of my junior year, beginning of my senior year, because I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I was fearful of that. So what did I do? I just said, you know what? I'm going to pick this, this, and this. I'm going to join these clubs and these organizations. If it works, awesome. If not, at least I can say I tried, right? So, and there's this stigma around, and I know some of you in here are definitely guilty of this, as was I, of, oh, being involved isn't that cool, right? That's not the case. There's no stigma there. Being involved in things is what gets you out of your comfort zone and allows you to try new things. And it translates to the workplace, because your superiors are going to take particular interest in your personal development, in your professional development. For example, I'm going through right now, like talking about either, moving to a different market or entertaining this market that we're in now in the same position, or something a little bit different but similar, because I opened my mouth and expressed interest in a certain department within TEKsystems. Now people are perking their ears saying, okay, Justin really wants this, right? He really wants to take a step forward and try something that he hasn't done before. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it builds your ability to continue to do that throughout the rest of your career. So I would definitely recommend doing that, or at least trying something new that you haven't done. I didn't even know career services existed until my junior year. And I tried it out. I wouldn't have ever known if I hadn't tried, and I fell in love with it. And it gave me a fantastic foundation, not only for communication skills, but professionalism and how to land your first job out of school. I would have never learned those things if I hadn't been involved in career services. So again, just try new things. I'm serious. It's awesome. It's fun. It's scary, but it's a great time. Seriously.
And I think being involved in those different organizations, that's what's really going to give you, the ability to answer a lot of those, well, tell me about a time when kind of questions, or can you recall a time when you did this kind of questions in interviews? You're going to be able to kind of think back to all those times you were involved on campus and, working with different people.
That's such a great point, Magic. That's where I get like all of my answers, is from like my extracurriculars. And that kind of brings me to my next question. Are there certain experiences that you prefer to see over others? Like, for example, would you rather see someone who is a president of their org or organization, or would you rather see an internship?
That's really interesting. And I think my immediate response, I pictured seeing 2 resumes, one with each, is no preference. I think any involvement is solid and shows that someone was trying to try something new, be involved with an organization, try out an internship. So I wouldn't hold preference to anything. I think anyone coming out of college with any type of work or leadership experience or any involvement is solid.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off that, I agree. And I think it kind of shows that you know how to multitask, because anybody that has been involved on campus, it's not easy to kind of go run a meeting and then go to practice and then still have to handle homework and then try to catch a 15-minute nap in between, your class, and then going to Cooper to get a chicken patty, and then, having another class after that. So I think it's definitely, I don't have a preference either.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, right? I mean, it's one of those things where either experience is going to teach you transferable skills, and also those really important soft skills, right? So those soft skills can come from either campus involvement or working directly for an organization. Now in IT, if, for example, if you work in your IT department's campus center, right? So I know that SUNY Oswego has an IT department because I had many issues with my computers going through school. So even if it's just like, hey, going into that office and saying, hey, I'm really looking for some hands-on work experience here. Do you have any openings, or do you have some volunteer work for me to participate in, just so I can start building a foundation of the skill set I want to go into? So just taking particular interest in what you're looking for and putting yourself out there to do those things, as long as it's on the resume and you have the skill set that we're looking for, either soft or hard skills there, it's really, there's no preference. I don't, exclude anybody. For example, if I have a person who did 4 internships, and then I have another person who was involved in 4 student organizations, and they helped lead an implementation project for SUNY Oswego in their technology services department. I mean, either of those things are just as good. So honestly, no preference on my end either.
Okay, great. And so do you guys want to leave off with any final tips or recommendations that you have to share with the students on how they can be the best candidate possible for the position that they're interested in?
I would say for me, it goes back to a point we've kind of reiterated. Just be so thoughtful throughout the interview process. I think technology these days makes it so easy for us to hop on a job board and quick apply to every single job opening. But if you take the time to kind of send out thoughtful applications, detailing why you're interested in a company or a position, it will definitely get you a better return on the response. And it was good to hear Magic and Justin kind of reiterate that as well. Companies notice, I notice if something's generic. And it's not to say that a company or myself wouldn't reach out to an application that's generic, but it won't be our first reach out. It would definitely be that person that kind of prioritized, doing the research and detailing why they're interested. I would also say, and I think Justin had mentioned this too, and I'm glad he did, because you can do everything right in an application and interview process and still get rejected for things that are out of your control. And again, to Justin's point, it could have been something as easy as, oh, the Giants fan comment that built that rapport, and you just felt like you could easily hit it off with that person. Like, there are so many small things that employers, that you don't even realize that employers will, potentially choose another candidate over yourself, that you just can't control. That's why I think it's so important to be selective in where you're sending your job applications, because I think if you're, going through and sending out applications in that mass mail format, you will probably get more rejections, and I think that could lead to frustration and discouragement in the process. So I would just say, be thoughtful, be selective, apply to roles that excite you, companies that excite you, and always be on good terms with the interview teams. If you do get an interview, even if you don't get the job, send a follow-up LinkedIn connection. If you interview for the job and you don't like the job, let the company know. Like, never leave, I would say, on bad terms from an interview process, because really is a small network. Like, I really feel like I know all the HR people in Boston, which seems crazy, but you just realize how connected everyone is. So I would just say that, be honest, be thoughtful throughout the process, and, kind of just stay true to you and what you're looking for.
I think some advice that I would give is, understand, just kind of back to my point of understanding that recruiters are humans as well. Because I think one thing, like when I used to hate interviews. After I graduated from Oswego, they always made me so nervous. I could start shaking and trembling and mixing up my words. And it wasn't really until one, I started working in sales, and then two, until I obviously became a recruiter, that I got more comfortable having conversations. You kind of really realize that we are humans, just like you. It's just that we're recruiting for a role, but an interview is honestly a two-way street. The same way I'm interviewing you to see if you're a good candidate, you should be interviewing me to see if this is even some place that you want to work. This is not however many years ago where people didn't have options. The market is very hot right now, and you have options, and you don't have to just take the first thing that comes your way. So I think that is important to understand. On top of just be willing to also reach out and speak to people. One thing I'm very big on is networking. Your network is your net worth. And that's honestly how I got my role here at Northwestern Mutual. I didn't apply to work here. I was just looking to get into recruiting because, like I mentioned, I have a sales background. So I reached out to a bunch of recruiters, and I was just like, hey, my name is Magic. I'm looking to transition into recruiting. I saw that you have a lot of history of success going from X, Y, and Z to here. I would love to have a conversation, hear about your background, and kind of see how I can, get in. And from there, people love to speak about themselves. So they're usually going to have the conversation with you. And from there, it's just a matter of networking. And once people kind of know what you're interested in, they're more than happy to usually send a referral out.
Yeah, I really loved your last comment there, Magic, of, just being able to put yourself out there and connect with people who are already in the field that you're interested in either transitioning to or getting into out of college. The other thing I would share too that, I didn't hear yet, and I'm sure you guys agree with this, is partner with your resources, right? Partner with people who may be in that field, right? Whether it's a family member or a family friend or somebody you graduated with or someone in your cohort or a sorority sister, fraternity brother, whoever it is, just be curious about it, right? And then the other thing too, when I say lean on your partners and your resources, is you have career services right in your back pocket. The career services professionals talk to companies all the time about what they're looking for. And that's where they use their knowledge to share with you guys as students. And you have it right in your backyard, literally, right? So I think another thing to keep in mind is have a second set of eyes on anything that you're doing. So that way you can get that appropriate feedback and say, here's what you're doing really, really well. Here's what you could use some improvement. And here's what, needs some serious work. So having, multiple sets of eyes and people in your corner to help you out throughout your job search is going to be such an important tool to utilize. I know it helped me, and I know it helped the two of you guys, and I'm sure it's helped you as well, Elise. But career services was a huge help for me when my tenure at Oswego, and it actually helped me land my first job, believe it or not, out of school. So it's very helpful. Utilize your partners and your resources that you have in your back pocket while you're in school, and it'll help you go a long way. I would not be here today if I didn't do that when I was in school. So just keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. I wanted to say that too. Please utilize career services. We're there to help you. And I know personally, I enjoy it so much when students come in and I get to see what they're originally applying for and go through researching the company with them to figure out the culture and think, oh, how should we write our cover letter so you guys can stand out, or how should we format the bullet points, and not so much doing it for students, but giving you the tools and teaching you how to do it. It's just so great. And I think there's so much from in career services, and we have the peer navigators and also career coaches. So we're really there to take care of anything you guys need, from the application documents to even one-on-one mock interviews for after you get that interview. So yeah, I just wanted to say that, and thank you so much to Marisa, Justin, and Magic for sharing your stories and your insight with us today. It was so valuable to hear your experiences and get your perspective on the hiring process. We appreciate the time you took out of your busy schedules to be here today, and attendees, feel free to add any of our panelists today on LinkedIn to further connect with them. If you have any specific questions we didn't get to today, or if you're just looking to start building your professional network, and those links are going to be in the chat.
Of course, thank you so much for having me. Oh, sorry.
Sorry about that. So prior to logging off for the evening, don't forget to complete our post-session feedback survey via the Google form link in the chat. And please note, we're asking participants to complete this form every time they attend a session. Each successful submission will count as one entry for this week's prizes. The more events you attend and submit the survey for, and the more chance you have to win. Sorry, I just had to get that housekeeping out of the way.
No, you are fine. I was just going to say thank you for having me. I really enjoyed sitting up here with Justin and Marisa. Nice to meet you. Now you guys are now connections that I have, so I definitely look forward to keeping in touch.
Yes, thank you, Elise and Christine and Magic and Justin. This was a lot of fun, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, same here. Thanks to everybody. Thanks, Christine, for organizing. Say a big thanks to Stephanie for me as well. Great to meet you, Marisa and Magic, and also Elise. And Elise, I know you're going into HR, so if you have any questions about anything, feel free to connect and reach out. I mean, I can talk about this field literally all day long. So anything at all, and that goes for anybody in the chat too. Feel free to be proactive and take the first step after what you've learned today.
Okay, and once again, a huge thank you to our alumni panelists and all that attended this awesome session this evening. We encourage you to check out the Imagine 2022 website and save the date for any upcoming sessions you may be interested in.